All right, we're live. I think we're live now. Welcome, everyone. Welcome one, welcome all. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, happy May Day. Another Wednesday is upon us. That means it's time for another My Left Eye PMQ's live stream. A very warm welcome to everybody tonight. Welcome to the chat, H. Good to see you. Very warm welcome to returning viewers and new viewers alike. And yeah, just posted in the chat, a great way to show solidarity this May Day is to hit the thumbs up button, help the stream reach a wider audience. Hope you're all very well this evening. Yeah, so more commentary and analysis from PMQs coming up. Got a couple of bits of news I'm going to go over first. It's been a pretty heavy day, I'm sure you'll agree, with everything going on in America on the college campuses over there. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, as well as another couple of quick points on one or two other issues before we dive straight in to PMQs. We do still have the Stop the Boats versus I'm a Lawyer game coming up as well. Hope you'll participate in that if you're listening live. There shouldn't be any ads during the stream. However, if you're watching on a replay or review, whatever you'd like to call it, there will be ads on in the middle of the video. So we're just going to take a few minutes in the lounge while people start to arrive, as always. Keith's serving up some May Day fondue. I seriously doubt he's even going to mention May Day or Labour Day, as it is in the States, of course, as well. That goes right back to 1886, when a group of unions in Chicago began to protest for an 8-day week. So they chose May the 1st, which was the day the protest started, and ever since then it's been Labour Day in America. So whether you celebrate Workers' Day or Labour Day, very warm welcome and solidarity to you. But not sure Keith's going to be dwelling on that issue, as I said. So we will be looking at those escalated situations on the college campuses in just a moment. It's crazy. I think it's nuts what's happening. It does follow logically though, which I'll be going into. Also an update on LBC presenter Sangeeta Miska. We mentioned on the last live stream that she'd been suspended. There's been an update with that situation. And also just a little bit about the upcoming local elections as well, which will be tomorrow, of course. And they'll be going straight into PMQs. As I said, Keith returns, as does Sunak. It was the Deputies last week. They caught us out. It was a 0-0 on the Stop the Votes versus I'm a Lawyer. But hopefully we'll get a few scores on the board tonight. Mr. Pike Bishop, very warm welcome to you as well this evening. Hope you're well. Just finishing getting set up here for a minute or two, and then we'll get started. Also, please consider helping to support the channel if you'd like to join. We've got a couple of membership tiers for you to enjoy, starting from just 99p. Some great exclusive perks, including static emojis. Just going to put one or two in the chat now for you to use. Also, other exclusive videos, live streams, etc. Please do check out the perks on those two tiers. There's one tailored just for live streams, if that's your kind of thing, on YouTube. Thanks a lot for your support as always. And if you're watching back on a replay, please do hit the super thanks button. If you're listening live, please make use of the super chats. I promise I will read all of those out. And another great way to support the channel, as well as showing solidarity with other people watching, is to gift memberships as well, which a few of you have been doing recently. Thanks a lot for that support. It's another quick channel update as well. Last week's PMQ's live stream is still demonetized. I don't think I can do anything about that. I think it was the new Statesman clip at the beginning before I got into the commentary and analysis. So yeah, please do consider helping to support the channel with a membership, super chat or super thanks. Right. I think we're just about ready to get started, yeah. Keith will just have to hold on a moment. Let's have a look at this college campus scene, as I said. This one's from, these pictures are from UCLA, but just a quick bit of background on how this all started. It all began at Columbia University, New York, and 50 people were arrested after a sit-in. That's 50 people were arrested. This is about a week ago, I think. And then members of the faculty and other students began to show solidarity with these campus sit-ins, as I'm sure you're all aware. And then a few pro-Israel Zionists tried to stir up some trouble, but it didn't go very well. In the case of Columbia, they weren't even allowed through the gate. So ever since then, there have been these continued showings of support and solidarity in campuses across America and here in the UK, which I'm going to be talking about shortly as well. And then in a few instances in the protests and demonstrations in the States, unfortunately, some violent pro-Israel Zionists have showed up and escalated this situation. It's led to 300 arrests at Columbia, with 100 students already being confirmed as suspended from the university. And all that's happened is a deliberate display from some quite despicable people, like pure thuggery basically, to disrupt and escalate these peaceful demonstrations and shows of solidarity. So at UCLA, we've seen things like this. These are a few pictures. There have been some pretty heavy-handed things going on. I'm not going to play any video clips of those. Again, don't want to risk breaking terms of service. So even barricades have been set up. It's been very confrontational. The police and campus police also. So you have, in both instances, New York City and Los Angeles, you have the city police as well as the campus police. These American campuses, quite huge. They have their own kind of private police force. And yeah, there have been a few things that are a bit too graphic to show you here, but those are just some of the pictures. Also, quickly just want to play you a clip from, I mean, there's been a lot of reaction to this, of course. Joe Biden seems to be critical of how this escalation has happened. He does, however, seem to be coming down on protesters, a bit more peaceful protesters. And I'm sure that that's one of the reactions that these pro-Israel violent Zionists would hope would come to pass if they escalated the situation. And lo and behold, it has already. This is ongoing. It started yesterday morning. That will be New York time, which is about 5 hours. It's 5 hours behind UK time. So this has been an ongoing situation, as we've seen other shows of solidarity, both with and without clashes, showing up in other places such as Wisconsin, for example, and as I mentioned earlier, here in the UK. But we're going to listen to US presidential candidate And I think this is a good summing up of the situation as it stands at the moment. Of course, this will perhaps go on for weeks or months. Um, I'm very pleased to see the shows of solidarity coming up. Of course, these shows of support not just for the students at Columbia that have been arrested, but obviously this is part of the broader support for a ceasefire in Gaza as well. And also, with it being May Day and Labour Day, I should make mention as well. We're just going to take a look at an ongoing diplomatic situation shortly as well, with Colombia breaking ties with Israel. But for now, this is Dr. Jill Stein, who is an independent US presidential candidate, and just came across this statement earlier. I think this really sums up the situation as best as I could.
I attended the encampment to basically show support for the students because they are putting everything on the line. They are upholding the highest values of American society in opposing genocide and also standing up for our constitutional rights to free speech and to the right to protest. These tactics that are being used by the police have actually been imported from the Israeli Defense Forces, which we now call the Israeli occupation forces. The Israeli occupation forces are part of these international training programs for police, and importing these very oppressive techniques that are used on Palestinians. It actually began in 2011, and this was analyzed after the Michael Brown riots and the very brutal actions of the police force. In fact, in taking down Michael Brown, that police force, the St. Louis police force, had actually been trained starting at that time by the IDF. And in an analysis done by Ebony Magazine, it was pointed out that extremely violent tactics were being imported along with these programs of sending surplus.
I want to quickly come in there as well and obviously give props to Jill for what she's saying there, but also the fact America have CNN. I'm sure that if this was on some, question time panel or whatever, she would have been interrupted by Fiona Bruce at least 3 times by now. Same goes for LBC, which we're going to be coming on to in just a moment as well. But this being a mainstream channel in the States just goes to show not that not that the majority of media in the States is left leaning or socialist by any means, but the fact that they do have CNN just goes to show the difference in quality between mainstream broadcasters in the UK when you compare it to the rest of the world.
Military equipment to our states and to our cities and towns. I do think that the students are standing up for our right to protest, our right to free speech, and for a value, which is basically stopping this genocide. There is no danger here. The danger is being imported along with the police. These are riot police which are creating a riot.
That was, Jill Stein. And again, these sit-ins have been peaceful, non-violent, and going on for weeks now. It's only escalated when the right wing and the police have gotten involved. Surprise, surprise. So we'll see what happens. Before I move on to quickly just show a little about the shows of solidarity in the UK, and then we'll head on. Gustave Petro, as I mentioned, the president of Colombia, has announced that his country will break relations with Israel, joining the likes of Spain and others recently who've also recognised the state of Palestine. So that's the latest show of solidarity there. Bit of good news this May Day. It's not all doom and gloom, And then, just quickly onto these scenes from the UK. I'll probably be saying more about this situation on the colleges, either in a video or future live streams. go into it in a bit more depth, but this is PMQs, so just wanted to dip into that a little. This is a scene from one of the shows of solidarity in Newcastle. Pitched up tents, lots of Palestine flags, of course. And we do have the Palestine flags as static emojis. Don't forget to use those to show solidarity today on the live stream, as well as raised fists to show your celebration of May Day. There was quite a bit going on all over the world as well. In Paris, I don't really have time to go into that. So Leeds, Newcastle, Bristol, Manchester, Warwick, all over the place. They're asking for supporters to donate food and drinks and hygiene products. Just quickly hyper skim through this article. Protesters want their universities to divest from Israel in response to its deadly military operation in the Gaza Strip. We've seen similar protests going on for universities that help to line up jobs for students going into fossil fuel companies, etc. So they're calling for this divestment. A lot of really strong protest, definitely coming from students and the youth at the moment, both showing support for Palestine, environmental issues, other economic, social issues. 60 students and staff members were at the one in Newcastle, more expected to join for a rally later in the day. And as you can see there, it's been less heavy-handed than the ones in the States. Fortunately, no absolute moronic thugs have showed up to try and escalate it. And let's hope it stays that way as well. Because the tactics are just so pathetic and intimidatory that they have to resort to violence. And I'm sure that more of these protests will follow, more of these shows of solidarity will follow. It's not going to put off anybody who wants to show support for Palestine and call for a ceasefire in Gaza, that's for sure. Even in some of the clashes in the States, fireworks were thrown, other missiles, the police in full riot gear, as you saw from those pictures just earlier, and it getting really heavy-handedly violent again. Quite a few clips that I wouldn't be able to show you on the live stream have come to my attention, and it really is getting into something, that's for sure. So we'll keep you up to speed with that as best as we can on the channel. Just a quick reminder, hit the thumbs up on the stream if you've not done so already, and the notification bell so you can keep up to speed with all the latest content. Just quickly going to touch on the local elections tomorrow before we get into PMQs itself. They're not nationwide, of course, this time around. They're mostly in towns surrounding London, also in the northwest and the northeast. There are some pretty interesting mayoral positions coming up though, including Jamie Driscoll, who's putting in a really strong campaign in the northeast and trying to challenge Keir Starmer's Labour, so going to be keeping you up to speed with that. There could possibly also be a stream tomorrow night as well, covering that as results come in, so keep an eye out for that. Hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out. And then finally, that update I mentioned, Sangeeta Miska, the LBC presenter, or should I say former LBC presenter now, spoiler alert, I'm sure a few of you have heard this story already, she has actually now been axed by LBC. Just bear with me one sec. Dry throats. she had been suspended previously, of course, played this clip in Sunday's live stream. Just a quick reminder, it's just a minute or so long, but she's really been stepping up to the plate in terms of challenging Israeli spokes on LBC. Contrary perhaps to some of the other presenters, shall we say, who don't quite hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, as much as Sangeeta does, and now she's been fired. We'll take a look at the clip first and then go into who's actually going to be replacing her.
What the Iranians, of course, have said is that this is a retaliatory strike after Israel struck its consulate in Syria. Now, we all know that the way diplomacy works is consulates and embassies are considered sovereign territory of the government that is concerned. What Israel did by taking that action against Iran was escalate what is already an incredibly fragile situation.
Sangeeta, that's an outrageous framing of the reality.
It's not an outrageous framing. I've just been speaking to somebody who is a diplomat to Iran from the UK government. That's not an outrageous framing of it. What Israel did was strike what is considered in diplomatic circles the sovereign territory of Iran, whether we like it or not. No. And there was undoubtedly going to be a blowback. So did Israel game out what was going to happen next?
Firstly, I'm not going to speak directly to that strike. What I can say definitively, and this is why it's outrageous, I can say definitively is that that wasn't an embassy, it wasn't a consulate, it wasn't any type of diplomatic mission.
It's been widely reported as that.
Because that's what Iran says. Because that's what Iran says. So would you like to copy and paste?
Are you suggesting every single news organization in the world has got that?
So this clip is just one example of how good she is, as I said, at stepping up to these Israeli spokes. The fact that she's now been axed really just show what a sorry state that we're in terms of quality of media in the UK right now. And for those of you who don't know, she's out the door, and instead, who I'm sure isn't going to do anywhere near as good a job, is Vanessa Feltz. Yes, Vanessa Feltz. So that's who's going to be replacing her on her slot, an LBC. And I think that's just an absolute misery as much as a tragedy. As far as LBC presenters go, they've got some absolute shocking cases in there, should we say. Sangeeta, to her credit, was one of the exceptions. I'm sure that Feltz won't be anywhere near as decent. So let's just take a look at a few examples. There's Vanessa Feltz, top right there, in shocking pink. But to her left as well, you've got David Lammy, a sitting opposition member of Parliament, shadow minister. And also, in the bottom left corner, we've got Rachel Reeves, a sister of former Prime Minister Alexander Boris Johnson, of course. And it's these two examples I just want to quickly talk about. I think the worst of these is perhaps Lammy, and I and others have often been critics of GB News for allowing MPs such as Jacob Rees-Mogg to present programmes on their show. It's also, I think, shows a lacking amount of scrutiny and regulation within Parliament itself. But I don't think this should be allowed to happen, whether they're a sitting member of Parliament or an opposition MP. And also, Rachel Reeves also has shown some shocking direct examples and shocking examples of nepotism, clearly defined. But anyway, back to the matter in hand. Vanessa Feltz, I'm sure she'll just let Israeli spokes, David Mensa, etc. harp on, which is really tragic. So they've really, Nick Ferrari's on there as well. He's mostly awful. but I'm not going to get into the other presenters too much. Just wanted to bring you that quick update. So, right, yeah, quite a few stories today. Let's get straight into PMQs now then. All right, so Stop the Boats versus I'm a Lawyer. Just a reminder, this is my genuine first time reaction. I've not seen this today. I've not even seen any clips of PMQs, to be honest. Just make sure that's lined up nicely. We'll see what the score is. Just what was that, one sec? And if it is your first time watching today's PMQs, let us know in the chat, as well as what you think the score might be. That'll do for now. Alright, so we're off. Let's get going. Let's bring up the scoreboard. Stop the Boats, 0. And I'm a Lawyer, 0. Going in. Now, with the locals coming up, and I still can't believe that after, obviously, it was a no-show for Sunak and Starmer as the deputies stepped in last week, that he then did that press conference where he said it about 50 times and even had it written across the front of the plinth, which I've changed the icon for Sunak's score to as well. So with Starmer as well, this is a new recent addition in the evolution of this Stop the Boats game. Anyway, whether he mentions that he's a lawyer or former director of public prosecutions, that sort of thing, he gets a point for that. It doesn't have to be the exact phrase, as I said. So we'll see what happens at the end. Who's using their over-exhausted and most worn-out lines the most? We'll see. Right. Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
We now come to Prime Minister's questions. I now call Kirsten Oswald.
Question 1, please.
Mr. Speaker, I know that the thoughts of the whole House are with the people of Hainault in East London following yesterday's appalling attack. Such violence has no place on our streets. It's absolutely heartbreaking that a teenage boy has died, and I can't imagine what his family are going through, and we send them our heartfelt condolences.
Was a very tragic case.
All those injured. And I'd just like to reiterate my thanks to the police and other emergency first responders for embodying the highest standards of public service under such awful circumstances. And I know that our thoughts are also with those injured this morning in an attack at a school in Sheffield. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues.
Well, apologies. That's the first I've heard of that. With so much going on today, that's also terrible as well. What's happened in Sheffield? Of course, I'll try and check that out after the stream, or give me a heads up in the chat if you've got any information on that. One of Floki's very well welcome to you tonight, Mike, Mr. Pike Bishop, I should say. Glad you enjoyed the Jill Steen interview. And H-Kill, thanks a lot for showing those Palestine and other emojis. Solidarity to everybody tonight. Hope you're well. Okay, let's crack on. They're going through the yada 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 at the moment. He'll have further such meetings today, etc. And then someone will stand up and kiss his ass for about 25 seconds.
Colleagues and others, in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Kirsten Oswald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We already know that more than 1 in 5 teenagers are vaping, with some experts describing this as an epidemic. And yesterday, new research suggested that teenagers who vape could be at risk of exposure to toxic metals, potentially harming brain or organ development. I agree with the Prime Minister in his wish to reduce the harms caused by smoking and vaping with the Tobacco and Vapes Bill. Will he agree with me that permitting football strips to be sponsored by vaping companies sends entirely the wrong message to young people, and that it's now time to ban vape companies advertising on sports strips.
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank the honourable lady for her question? Obviously,
no prizes for guessing if he'll agree or not.
Rest with individual teams, but I do agree with her that it is important we do everything we can to tackle the scourge of teenage vaping, which is why I'm glad that she supports our bill, which will clamp down on the marketing, availability of flavours, targeting point-of-sale purchases, but also improving funding.
I do, of course, forever think it's hilarious that the way that the parliamentary system works, she just feeds his own words directly back to him in the form of a question, and then he agrees essentially with himself, and that's what always happens as we go into the start of PMQs. I find myself dumbfounded by it at times. Look at Jeremy Hunt there, absolute stir on him.
Trading standards to clamp down on those selling vapes illegally to children.
Dr. Lisa Cameron.
Many thanks, Mr. Speaker. My husband is a veteran, and the defence of the country is the government's first duty to protect people across the United Kingdom. So can the Prime Minister reassure the House that he has a plan in place to back our world-leading armed services? And does he know why the party opposite refused to back his plan?
Well, they've both said they're going to increase military spending recently. I don't know what she's on about.
My honourable friend's husband and all our veterans for their service.
They found about 70 billion down the back of the coach.
We build our security, protecting our values, our interests, and indeed our nation. That's why this government has taken the step to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, making us the biggest spender in Europe under NATO. And when the Labour leader stands up, I hope that he stops dithering, does the right thing, and confirms that he will back our plan to increase defence spending.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, I join with the Prime Minister in his words about yesterday's awful events at Hainault. I'm sure the whole House will want to commend the first responders and send our deepest condolences to the family of the 14-year-old boy who was murdered. And I join with the Prime Minister in his remarks about the attack in the school in Sheffield as well. I know everyone in this House will be delighted to see His Majesty the King returning to his public duties and looking so well, and we all wish him and the Princess of Wales the best in their continued...
Spoken like a true socialist.
I'd also like to welcome the member for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich to his place on these benches. After nearly 2 decades as a Tory politician and an NHS doctor,
he's a Tory, and they're all so welcome in Keith's Labour Party. So welcome.
And our NHS, then it's time for change. It's time for this changed Labour Party. And as of today,
they're claiming that they're going to bring change at the same time, literally adopting members of the party that they say that they're going to change from. In Dan Poulter's case, he's not even going to be... he's going to stand down even if he wins the seat. But also it took him 15 years to cotton on that the Tories were cutting public services. Oh yeah, you've got yourself an absolute diamond there, Keith. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me.
You've got to be fucking kidding.
Yeah. All right, on we go.
as of today, he's our newest Labour MP, but I'm sure he won't mind me saying that I hope he loses that title on Friday. Mr. Speaker, when a lifelong Tory and doctor says that the only cure for the NHS is a Labour government, isn't it the time the Prime Minister admits he has utterly failed?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to actually see the honourable gentleman from Central Suffolk in the House today. That's because he recently pointed out that residents of his local Labour council are, and I quote in his words, charged much more in council tax, but in return receive lower quality services. Now, he's been wrong about some things recently, but on that point, he's absolutely right. And this week, people everywhere should vote Conservative.
He comes out with all that nonsense, but he locks himself away.
Local election alert.
Moaning that people aren't grateful enough to him. The reality is Tory MPs are following Tory voters in concluding that only the Labour Party can deliver the change that the country needs. And I say to those Tory voters, if they believe in a better Britain, then they're safe with this changed Labour Party, and it's for them.
Toss, absolute toss, Keith.
Mr. Speaker, in the 2 weeks since we last met at this dispatch box, has the Prime Minister managed to find the money for his completely unfunded £46 billion promise to scrap national insurance?
Mr. Speaker, of course, we addressed that a few weeks ago, and I'm happy to address it again. But I know that economics is not his strong point, but
I'm happy to repeat my deflection and proceed into a party political broadcast, of course.
Who just this morning said,
go on, say it.
That's not how it works, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, the IFS have also said the link between national insurance and public services funding is illusory, just like Labour's economic plans, Mr. Speaker.
They're the same as yours.
Clear. There's one party that's going to deliver tax cuts for working Britain, and it's the Conservative Party.
5%.
Whoever's banging the furniture will have to pay for your damages. Can we have less of it? We are not at the sixth form now. Come on, Prof.
Well, that was a long, rambling non-answer to the question, which was, has he found the money to fund his £46 billion promise to abolish national insurance? And whenever he's asked about the date of the election or people's pensions, he acts as if answering straightforward questions is somehow beneath him. But pensioners and those who are planning their retirement deserve better than his contempt for their questions. Because if £46 billion were cut from its funding, the value of the state pension would almost halve. So I don't apologise for asking him again.
Order. Mr. Gullis, you've got the next question you're not going to reach. You've got a 10-minute rule.
Oh, it's
I'd be quiet
Jonathan Goulis. Surprise, surprise. What an idiot.
I don't apologise for asking on their behalf again whether he will finally rule out cutting their state pension to fulfil the enormous black hole in his spending plans.
Mr. Speaker, of course we can rule that out, and the honourable gentleman should stop scaremongering, because
talk about how much Stop of the Boats is. Talk about it a lot.
By £3,700 since 2010, and they will rise in each and every year of the next Parliament. But it's Labour that always hits pensioners hard. It's his mentors, Blair and Brown, that broke their promises, raised pension taxes by £118 billion, and delivered an insulting...
Do you think that Penny Mordaunt's finding it quite hard to stay awake again? Just noticed over Sunak's left shoulder as we look. Remember last week, she seemed like she was just dying to get out of there, like someone who just showed up at their exams, not giving a crap, and just couldn't wait to get out of there or something like that. Then the shot before, Jeremy Hunt still putting on this evil, well, this stir, this translate. He always looks like some kind of demented emu. That's what it always reminds me of. On we go.
75p rise in the state pension. As one former Labour advisor just said, Brown destroyed our pension system. They did it before, they'll do it again. Labour always betray our pensioners.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear he can't answer the question where he's going to find...
Go on, Keith, tell him you're a lawyer.
No, he said, luckily for him... No, that's where he said it's not coming from. It's not saying where it's coming from. Luckily for him, one of his peers, Lord Frost, yes, him again, does. He says to solve the Tory spending plans, the state pension age should be raised to 75. Now, understandably, that will cause some alarm. So will the Prime Minister rule out forcing people to delay their retirement by years and years in order to fulfil his £46 billion black hole?
Mr. Speaker, I've answered this multiple times to the Honourable General. I'm happy to say again, this is the party that has delivered and protected the triple lock. But I know, Mr. Speaker, ultimately he's not worried about any of this because we all remember that he's got his very own personal pension plan. I think we all remember it, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, it comes with its very own special law. It was called the Pension Increase Scheme for Keir Starmer.
This is coming from someone worth around £750 million. His family's, of course, worth billions. Where politicians are concerned and other high-ranking public servants, they're often ludicrous sums given as what's known as golden handshakes, as I'm sure you know. That's pure hypocrisy from Sunak, but also it goes to show the likeness between the two of them as well. Mr. Pike Bishop, you think Penny Mordaunt's daydreaming about standing up to fight? Perhaps she is. Perhaps she is. Perhaps she's thinking, was that my last conference in government? Perhaps she's sat there now thinking, maybe I should have washed my hands before I went into the House of Commons, or she's coming up with something for her perhaps she's thinking about a leadership move. Question mark. Rumours about that, of course. The knives will be out for Sunak soon, of course.
It's literally one law for him and another one for everyone else.
He wants to abolish national insurance. It'll cost £46 billion.
We've broken international law as well, Sunak.
We're no closer to an answer. I'm going to persevere because last year the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. His Paymaster General went a step further. He said these are the sorts of things that we need to look at. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole?
Mr. Speaker, it was this government that just this winter provided double the winter fuel payment to support pensioners. But what is crystal clear, Mr. Speaker, is that we believe that the double taxation on work is unfair, Mr. Speaker. We believe that hard work should be rewarded, and that's why this week...
It's frustrating he wastes so many minutes in PMQs asking the same thing 3 times, but not in any particularly entertaining or pressing way. It just opens the door for Sunak to make these ridiculous responses. And welcome to the chat as well, Sol Latimer. Nice to see you tonight.
With tax after tax, and they would do it all over again.
Mr. Speaker, is it any wonder that his...
You're bad with tax. No, you're bad with tax and pensions. No, you are. That's where we're at.
Even the mayors that he's apparently pinning his political survival on don't want to be seen anywhere near him, because until he starts setting out how he's paying for his fantasy economics, he's got a completely unfunded £46 billion promise that puts people...
Their economics are the same as yours, Starmer. Well, you know it.
Day out from elections with the message, vote Tory, risk your pension.
Vote Labour, get Tory,
Mr.
more like.
Speaker, tomorrow voters will have a choice, and it will be a choice. It will be a choice between mayors like Andy Street and Ben Houchen, who are delivering, or mayors like Sadiq Khan, who just simply virtue signal, Mr. Speaker. It's higher tax.
Sunak says delivering more than an Uber Eats driver. I'm sure. But this back and forth merry-go-round, again, is a pure example of the sorry state of affairs in Parliament. But tomorrow, I think Starmer and Sunak are going to get a shock. Sunak's going to take a massive hit, of course. They're not all going to be going Labour's way, though. I'm sure this will be quite the litmus test, the sort of yardstick, being so close to the next general election, how people are feeling at the moment. I'm still thinking a pretty low turnout, though, to be honest. And but I do see Independents and Greens making quite a few gains. Just another reminder that in Keith's first local election after he took over, he came 5th in gains. See what he does this time around.
Is more crime and ULEZ with Labour, or it's lower taxes and better services with the Conservatives? That's the choice. From West Midlands to Teesside to London, there is only one choice. Vote Conservative.
A literal party political broadcast.
And we've now deported our first illegal migrants. But unsurprisingly,
here's 8-man Gullis himself now.
the Shadow Home Secretary is busy posing for pics, encouraging more boats to come over. The leader of the Labour Party said he cancelled the Rwanda flights. He took a knee when signing letters stopping us deporting illegal foreign national offenders who committed crimes like murder and rape. And he'd do a deal with the EU, surrendering our borders to 100,000 legal migrants. Isn't it right, Prime Minister, that only the Conservatives will stop the boats and cut legal migration?
That's two.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is working. Legal migration, the latest figures show down by 24%.
And it's already 2-0 to Sunak.
But we all know Labour's big idea. It's to scrap the Rwanda plan, even
That's
when
a
it's
quick brace
operational,
from Jonathan
Mr.
Goulis.
Speaker. But as one senior Labour advisor said to Andrew Marr just yesterday, we can't just come in, tear it up and have nothing to put in its place. I'm sorry to break it to them, but that's exactly their policy. While we're getting on stopping the boats, all Labour will do is stop the planes.
SNP leader Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Monday, the Armed Forces Minister was neither able to confirm nor deny that UK...
Okay, Stephen Flynn's always awesome, so I just want to pause it there. It's good to see Stephen Flynn back. So a quick brace from Jonathan Goulis, and then Sunak comes in. We're at 3-0. Perhaps Starmer will come back and try and remind them of the legal ramifications and his precedence in terms of occupation relative to that. All right, what's Stephen Flynn got? Not heard from him for a couple of weeks.
Troops may soon be deployed on the ground in the Middle East. Now, the public watching will be hoping that members of this House do not have a short memory when it comes to the potential deployment and involvement of our military in the Middle East. So can I ask the Prime Minister to provide some much-needed clarity? Is he giving active consideration to the deployment of UK forces in the Middle East, yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, you wouldn't expect me.
I wouldn't expect you to provide a direct answer to that question. I just wanted to point out what a great question it was. I, for one, and I'm sure many people alike, don't want to see armed forces on the ground in the Middle East, whether it be in Palestine, Lebanon. All of the region risks a wider escalation, as we know, but we don't want to get involved with this. We're not going back to Iraq and Afghanistan, are we? Are we going back to those days? I surely hope not. And that just as sure as I'm going to expect a derisory response from Sunak here.
To get into any operational planning details, but what I will say is we are absolutely committed to supporting international efforts to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza, which is something I think the whole House would support. By land, sea and air, we've obviously tripled.
Stop arming them. Stop arming them. Stop arming them.
Off the coast of Gaza to get aid in as securely and quickly.
Never mind, stop the bastard boats.
Albeit, no doubt, aid is required in Gaza, and it is required because when people are not being bombed, they are starving to death. The solution to that is a ceasefire and the opening of safe ground air routes, not the involvement on the ground of UK military personnel. These are dramatic and potentially dangerous developments. So will the Prime Minister confirm to the House today that before he makes a decision, all members will be afforded a vote?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to apologise for our armed forces playing a leading role in supporting international efforts to get more aid in, and indeed we are sending...
No, he doesn't mean that way. He means militarily supporting Israel. You know exactly what he means. Don't try and dodge it. Don't forget to show your solidarity flags of Palestine with me. Brothers and sisters, happy May Day, solidarity.
Out, aid in, and for there to be a sustainable pause in the fighting. And it seems clear that there now is a workable offer.
Seems to be the usual response so far from Sunak. Just a quick thanks to Mithril. Thanks a lot for joining us and for the 5 gifted memberships. Hope you 5 enjoy your perks. Thanks a lot for that. Great way to show solidarity. Great to see you back, Mithril. Hope you're well. How are things? I think what Sunak's about to go on to is the latest round of ceasefire talks, which Hamas are hoping, which the United States has said they're hoping they'll agree to. Let's see what Sunak's got to say about it first. I'll throw in my 2 cents.
On the table, so I hope he joins with me in encouraging all parties, including Hamas, to accept that deal so we can move towards a sustainable solution.
Sir Bill Wigan. My right honourable friend's decision to cancel HS2 led to £207 million for Herefordshire's potholes and transport infrastructure. Hereford Hospital has a new wards, more beds, and a new diagnostic centre on the way. £35 million has been allocated to the River
Did he just try and gloat about HS2, which has been a disaster?
The Rwanda bill has been passed and defence spending is increasing. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that if he carries on like this, he's going to win the next election?
Mr. Speaker, I'm thankful for my honourable friend in highlighting the work that the government's doing, whether that is increasing our defence spending to keep us safe, securing our borders with our Rwanda Act, cutting taxes by £900, raising the state pension by £900. And I'm also pleased that locally in Herefordshire we are filling in potholes, helping
it's
to
a
save
runaway
the River
for
Wye and
Sunak
improving
this
local
week
health services.
so far.
It shows crystal clear that it's the Conservative government that has a plan and is delivering a bright...
Yeah, vertical and with a pulse, unlike Sunak's political career. Yeah, thanks for that, Mithril. Well put. Well put. He's certainly up, not for the chop tomorrow, but he's certainly going to take a few hits locally. Well, there's a few hundred seats up for grabs. We'll see what happens. He's going to lose a lot all over. I can't see the Tories making any gains whatsoever.
Brighter future for our country.
Caroline Lucas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In February, his Foreign Secretary said it would be difficult for a ground offensive on Rafah to avoid harming civilians and destroying homes. Just yesterday, his Deputy Foreign Secretary admitted he was struggling to see how such an attack could be compliant with international humanitarian law. All the signs are that Netanyahu is about to defy the international community. An attack on the 1.5 million Palestinians sheltering in Rafah is imminent. If that attack begins, will that be the moment when the Prime Minister finally finds the moral backbone to ban arms exports to Israel? And if not, how much more suffering has to happen before he acts to prevent further UK complicity in crimes against humanity?
Great to see Caroline Lucas, again, the, of course, former leader of the Green Party, who I think are going to get another seat or two than they currently have presently. As many as they can get under first past the post, that's for sure, but a really well put question there, straight on the nose. Reminding Sunak of the UK's legal as well as moral position with arms sales and aid to Israel.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what the Honourable Lady did not acknowledge at all is that Israel suffered an appalling terrorist attack that killed hundreds of its citizens, and it does...
Very poor that they're still trying to spin that narrative. Very weak, desperate even.
Respected and adhered to by all parties. Too many civilians have been killed, and we do want to see Israel take greater care to avoid harming civilians. I've made these points repeatedly to Prime Minister Netanyahu, specifically about the impact of any military incursion into Rafah, and we continue to say to the Israelis at all levels that we want to see more aid going in and bring about a hostage deal so we can move towards a sustainable ceasefire.
Andrew Slow.
Whatever Caroline Lucas is thinking, I'm sure I agree. She shakes her head in utter disbelief. The primary thing you can do to help Gazans is to stop providing Israel with the weaponry to put them under a siege and occupation. It beggars belief that he thinks throwing a few crumbs on the table in terms of aid anywhere near makes up for that, as well as the fact he's not doing anything to unblock this huge backlog of aid, or to use his diplomacy to discourage Israel to go back on the planned offensive on Rafah again, which they're going to say, but a lot hangs on this these ceasefire talks, as I said. We'll see how that develops. I can't believe it either, Caroline.
The 60% increase in funding for special educational needs and disabilities is extremely welcome, but the challenges around the recruitment of community paediatricians mean that some children in Leighton Buzzard, Dunstable and Houghton Regis are waiting too long for an assessment. What can the NHS do to attract more of the 39,000 additional doctors recruited under this government into community paediatrics as a specialty, which is incredibly rewarding?
Yeah, Lucas will be missed. You're quite right, Mithril. That was so appalling, as though the Tories haven't cut so much of the NHS over the last 15 years. If you want to know more about my thoughts on that, as well as Dan Poulter's defection, I'm sure you won't mind me talking over Sunak for a minute. Please do check out the recent episode we did, which was also out just a few days ago, I think. But yeah, thanks a lot.
That we have fully backed, doubles the number of medical school places in England, increases specialty training places, and that will increase the size of the pool from which community paediatricians can be drawn in the future.
Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you. I know that you, Mr. Speaker, want to join me in sending condolences to the friends, family and colleagues of our former colleague Lord Andrew Stunnell, who served with exceptional diligence and grace as MP for Hazel Grove in this House and who passed away very suddenly on Monday. Mr. Speaker, when the BBC ends long-wave radio transmission next year, they will also end access to electricity tariffs like total heating with total control, relied on by almost 1 million households across the United Kingdom. Switching to smart meters is not going to fix this for most people, not least because the rollout programme is so far behind. So will the Prime Minister or possibly His Secretary of State for Energy get the energy companies, the regulator and the customer groups together so that we can stop passing the blame around and find a solution that does not yet again leave people in the Highlands and Islands behind and out in the cold?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I understand that an agreement has now been reached to ensure that radio teleswitching services will continue until June of next year, and Ofgem are also engaging with energy suppliers on their plans to support consumers through the transition. Whilst households that are currently covered by the service shouldn't be disadvantaged by the switch off, it's energy suppliers who are best placed to advise on tariffs for those who have been switched to a smart meter. However, I will make sure that the Right Honourable Gentleman does get a meeting with the relevant minister to ensure that his constituents are not left behind during the transition.
Peter Aldis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The East of England is playing a lead role in delivering the UK's energy security, and without our contribution, the country will not be able to successfully transition to a renewable energy supply system. In recent months,
what? Been issuing hundreds of new fossil fuel licences. Burke?
Will my right honourable friend ensure that government departments are fully coordinated so as to provide the region with good supporting infrastructure, proper protection for coastal communities, and every opportunity for local people to take up exciting new jobs.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are levelling up across the United Kingdom and investing in places that need it most, including, as my honourable friend rightly highlights, our coastal communities. Almost £1 billion of levelling up funding has been allocated to the east of England, including £75 million for coastal places. I know that he welcomes the town deal for
£1 billion. They subsidise fossil fuels by £235 million a bloody week. He's trying to gloat about £1 billion.
Its role in our energy security, but particular in coastal communities.
Deirdre.
Mr. Speaker, the Greenpeace group Unearth found 36 supposed grassroots campaign groups which were actually administered by Conservative staff and activists and were forums for vile racism, anti-Semitism and Islamophobic attacks on Sadiq Khan. Now, one hears of other such coordinated efforts around anti-20 mile/hour zones in Wales. Can the Prime Minister shed some light?
Someone a bit close to the nearest microphone said, "Oh God, I'm not surprised." Just listen out for that again. I've got my headphones on, so probably hear it a bit clearer. If you are wearing headphones, listen out for this.
Grassroots campaign groups which were actually administered by Conservative staff and activists and were forums for vile racism, anti-Semitism and Islamophobic attacks on Sadiq Khan. Now, one hears of other such coordinated efforts around anti-20...
Oh, it cut to a close-up shot. Whoever that was, yeah. Exactly what I was thinking as well.
mile/hour zones in Wales. Can the Prime Minister shed some light on these shady groups spreading abuse, their funding, their links to his party, and whether he is aware of similar operations existing elsewhere in the UK? If he won't, will he at least commit today to investigate and take action to tackle the sources of this grubby gutter politics?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not aware about the topic that the honourable lady raises, but I'm not going to make any apology for Conservatives pointing out the record of whether it's the SNP in Scotland or the Labour government in Wales, because that's exactly what democratic process is about. She might not like it when we highlight their record, but we will keep doing so that we can deliver for people across the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome our government's commitments to boosting defence spending and supporting Ukraine.
Rhubarb.
International leadership and sound management of the economy. My constituents have been doing us proud supporting Ukraine, like the Pot Place Garden Centre delivering ambulances, medical equipment and supplies, and Steve Hodgson providing vital aid. Would the Prime Minister join me in paying tribute to my constituents and people up and down the land for their support for Ukraine, and reaffirm that we will continue to stand with Ukraine for the sake of freedom, democracy and global security?
I join my honourable friend in thanking people up and down the country, including the fantastic work of his constituents in supporting the Ukrainian community in the face of Putin's illegal invasion. We remain steadfast in support of Ukraine and in total since the war began, we've pledged over £12 billion of aid to Ukraine. Last week we announced an additional £500 million of funding, which will be used to deliver much needed ammunition, air defence and engineering support and drones. But more importantly, and President Zelensky welcomed this, we are able to now say that we'll continue with this level of support.
Why is it always more bombs, more guns, more planes, more this, not a, not a diplomatic solution, as if the Ukraine could overwhelm Russia or that there could be some final sort of military victory for Zelensky. Totally not. Totally not. Oh, sorry, Mithra. I'm muted. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me. Sorry, I had a problem with my mic the other week. Let me know. Let me know. But, yeah, just still up to our necks in the industrial military complex. It's awful to see.
For as long as it takes, because of the historic increase in our defence spending, and it's crystal clear that on this side of the House we can say that our support to Ukraine will never waver.
Margaret Bremer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1969, my constituent Georgina Jacobs gave birth to a baby boy who she named Robert. Sadly, Robert was born asleep, and in those days the hospitals would ask the father to collect the baby's body, take it to the cemetery and leave it there for burial. For 53 years, Georgina didn't know exactly where Robert was buried. When she eventually found him, she shared her story on social media, and other mothers who'd been through the same experience got in touch. Since then, Georgina has located over 60 babies on behalf of grieving parents and has deservedly been presented with the Wirral Award for her achievements. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating Georgina on her award and on having brought comfort to so many parents and families? And will he, on behalf of all previous governments, apologise for this form of practice which left grieving parents with nowhere to visit their buried children?
That's awful.
Well, can I thank and commend the Honourable Lady for raising this case and just pay tribute to Georgina for what she is doing. I often say that one of the most incredible things about doing this job is meeting people like Georgina who have suffered tragedy in their lives, but then use that to campaign and inspire and bring about a better life for everyone else. She's a prime example of that. She deserves nothing but our praise and admiration, and I'm so pleased that she's brought comfort to so many other people too.
Paulsy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since I was elected in 2010, rugby's seen employment grow by nearly 6,000, with 10% more of my constituents in work, much of which has been driven by investment from advanced manufacturing in places such as Anstey Park, where we've got the Manufacturing Technology Centre, which the Prime Minister visited, High Temperature Research Centre, Rolls-Royce, Parker Meggitt, Fanuc and the London Electric Vehicle Company. Given that every Labour government has left office with unemployment higher than when they came in, can the Prime Minister see any reason why anybody would want to put this fantastic progress at risk?
I was pleased to see for myself on a recent visit that my honourable friend is a great champion for his constituents in rugby, and I was very pleased to see the thriving local technology.
The Tories changed the definition of what counts as being out of work so many times. People who run crappy 0 hours contracts were counted as being employed, even though they weren't working at all. People who only worked 6 hours a week, 10 hours a week were being counted as in full employment. They've shook up the books. They've done some dodgy accounting, and those aren't the real facts and figures as they were put to Sunak there.
Manufacturing industry, which will help us deliver on our ambitions to make the UK a science and technology superpower. And he's right that we do have a record with 1 million fewer workless households, unemployment near record lows, and he's also right that we need to stick to that plan, because that's how we'll deliver the long-term change that our country needs and deliver a brighter future for families up and down the country, including in his constituency.
Colin Lockhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hypocrisy needs called out, and everyone in this House will recall the former Irish Prime Minister in Brussels with a photograph of a bombed customs post, lamenting that any border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland was unworkable, it was in breach of the Belfast Agreement and could result in such troubles again. The hypocrisy of the Irish Government from such a position has not been lost, with the Irish police now tasked to patrol the border, protect from the unsubstantiated, unfounded 80% figure of asylum seekers who supposedly make their way to the Republic of Ireland from the UK via Northern Ireland.
Night H, take care. See you next time.
is true. Will the Prime Minister challenge and call out these actions and confirm what representations he has made to the Irish Prime Minister and the Justice Minister to respect the integrity of our...
It's a very long-winded Brexit question. Welcome to the chat, Brett James, as well. Hope you're well tonight.
Of Ireland, and the Honourable Lady makes a very important point that the Irish government must uphold its promises too. We can't have cherry picking of important international agreements, and so the Secretary of State.
Oh, what, like the like the ECHR, for example?
That there will be no disruption or police checkpoints at or near the border, and I can confirm that the United Kingdom has no legal obligation to accept returns of illegal migrants from Ireland. Now, it's no surprise that our robust approach to illegal migration is providing a deterrent, but the answer is not sending police to villages in Donegal. It's to work with us in partnership to strengthen our external borders all around the common travel area that we share.
So Desmond Swain.
Mr. Speaker, I was the
Desmond
Lord Commissioner.
Swain. Oh, God, he's not been up for a while. These are always interesting. Strap yourselves in, everyone. Desmond Swain. Jesus wept. Right, let's see what's going to fall out of his trap. He's not been up in PMQs for a while. It's always something.
Signed the Right Honourable Gentleman's special pension into law. He owes me one. But the Prime Minister is right. Labour's 75 pence was an insult to pensioners. Yet last year,
Starmer loves him.
Afforded pensioners the highest increase in 30 years. The Prime Minister is going to continue to deliver for dignity in retirement, isn't he?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right that we will provide dignity to all those in retirement. That's why we introduced the triple lock, and that's why this year the state pension is rising by £900. I'm also proud of our record to bring 200,000 pensioners...
Take another retirement yourself. You've only got £750 million to sit on.
In each and every year of the next Parliament. And as he reminds us about the 75p increase, unlike Labour, pensioners in this country can trust the Conservatives.
Mr. Speaker, in only one of the 194 local authorities...
That will probably be the last time Desmond Swain appears from the government benches, at least in PMQs. I'm sure that, well, I think he'll probably lose his seat anyway.
Areas in England are NHS ambulances meeting the national response time targets for responding to potential heart and stroke victims. Does the Prime Minister know which one it is?
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to ambulance waiting times in A&E, of course there's more work to do, but the place where they are the worst in the country is in Labour on Wales, Mr. Speaker. Thanks to our plan, we've seen an improvement in A&E and ambulance times. This winter over last winter, we have 800 more ambulances on the road, faster discharge out of our emergency care centres, and 10,000 virtual ward beds. Now, virtual ward beds, of course, as I said, there is more to do, but the contrast to Labour on Wales is crystal clear. It's the worst A&E performance anywhere in Great Britain.
Mr. Speaker, for 6 months, thousands of my constituents have lived...
Probably also got the least investment.
Landfill site. The company is owned by somebody with previous convictions for environmental crimes and who, a few months ago, gave £200,000 to help Vaughan Gething become First Minister of Wales. After another of his other companies was loaned £400,000 from the Development Bank of Wales, overseen by the then Economy Minister, Vaughan Gething. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that this serious matter demands an independent investigation? It's not some internal Labour Party matter, and ultimately that company needs to get out of my constituency and let people in Pembrokeshire have their quality of life back.
Well, my honourable friend brings up an incredibly important issue, and I know that people in Wales are concerned about the relationship that he mentions, and I also agree with him on the need for transparency and an investigation regarding the Welsh Labour leader, because it's very clear that the situation is not at all transparent and answers are needed.
Oh, definitely a general election coming up then.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it's been revealed by the Observer newspaper that the Conservative candidate for the Mayor of London is actually a member of the 6 Facebook groups which was mentioned by the member for Edinburgh North. And they are full of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism and the most disgraceful incitement to damaging property. And the worst bit, for those of us who were in the House when our members of Parliament were taken, death threats to the current Mayor of London, Mr Khan. Will he close down these Facebooks which have been begun by Conservative members of staff, and will he investigate the role?
Is he even he's not even looking at her, staring at his
and her membership
notes.
of those disgraceful, racist Facebooks?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the election tomorrow will be fought on the substance of the issues that Londoners face, and the Labour record is crystal clear. House building in London has collapsed. Knife crime is rising. Mayoral taxes are up 70%, and drivers have been hit with ULEZ charges. And the Labour mayor just simply panders to unions and has decimated London's nighttime economy. That's his record. That's how he'll be judged. And people across London know that they will be safer with the Conservatives, with lower taxes and better services.
Final question, Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, Mr. Speaker, is Staffordshire Day, where we celebrate
Well, they won't be voting for you.
things about the county of Staffordshire. So would my right honourable friend join me in paying tribute to our brilliant Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, Ben Adam?
Well, Staffordshire Day, whatever. Never even heard of that one. As predicted, though, thus far, and I'm sure that he's not going to be brought up to speak again, Starmer makes no mention of May Day or Labour Day or International Workers' Day.
And encourage the people of Staffordshire to vote for Ben tomorrow to make sure we keep Staffordshire one of the safest places to live, work and visit.
Well, I wish...
This is like sponsored by the Tourist Board as well as the Tories giving you a party political broadcast. Come to Staffordshire, where it's kind of... She didn't really have much to say. What about Birmingham? Bankrupted from underfunding. Just very close approximation to Stafford.
Wish everyone a happy Staffordshire Day, and she mentions the PCC elections, and I think it's right that she does, because under this Conservative and previous governments we've cut crime.
Apologies to anyone in Staffordshire. Just saying, there's been a lack of mention of May Day.
Victims of burglary, twice as likely to be victims of robbery, and as I said, last year knife crime in London went up by 20%. The facts simply speak for themselves. Vote Conservative for safer streets.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. We'll let the front benches clear.
And off they went. And that was another week, another Wednesday, another PMQs. Yeah, kind of as predicted. A lot of what Sunak was coming out with was very much coincidentally with the fact that we've got a local election coming up. A lot of party political broadcasts there, I should say. Pretty lame ones at that. He's going to take a drubbing tomorrow, I've no doubt. Keith, again, just repeating that question at least 3 times. Wasting his time, wasting his questions. Didn't even remind us that he's former director of public prosecutions and therefore got trounced 4-0 in Stop the Boats versus I Am a Lawyer. I should point out, though, that with it being PMQs, Sunak does have more of an advantage. He would speak a lot more than Keir Starmer, obviously. So just to point that out mathematically, scientifically, it's probably why it's going to be favourable towards Sunak in terms of results. And tonight was no exception. At least 4 mentions of that there. But we'll see how effective Starmer and Sunak's words have been when we look at the local election results tomorrow. Let us know as well if you're going to be voting tomorrow, if there's going to be an election where you live. You're also free to keep it to yourself or let us know who you're going to be voting for. personally, I'd like to recommend, as always, people vote for the Socialist Grassroots Party, Independents or the Greens, or whoever your environmentally friendly candidate may be as well, of course. Let us know your thoughts about that session. Jonathan Goulis had to be reminded to stay quiet by Hoyle. Other than that, he didn't really intervene much. Fortunately, the braying and whatnot and schoolboy behaviour will be less and less apparent after autumn when we have the general election. There'll be a lot less Tories in the House, so that's one thing to look forward to, of course. Yeah, so whether you're watching on a replay or let us know in the chat what you thought about this session. Pretty standard, really. Pretty bog standard session. Not too much controversy. Just a lot of really lame responses from Sunak, including trying to promote and advertise for the Staffordshire Tourism Board as well. Yeah, we'll see what happens next week. They'll be responding to the results of those local elections, of course, with there being hundreds of seats up for grabs. I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of back and forth. But will Starmer perhaps have some ammunition to throw at Sunak by then? Who knows? Who knows? We'll have to see. Great to see Stephen Flynn back, as I said, and Caroline Lucas as well. Yeah, she sorely missed, of course, as leader of the Greens. And it will be same time next week as well for PMQs on the channel. So thanks a lot for joining us. We'll just nip back into the lounge as we say our goodbyes. Still got the LBC horse up there, never mind. Yeah, so as I said, be back same time next week, next Wednesday for another PMQs. Try and join us on the regular Sunday live stream between now and then as well if you can. Hit the notification bell and please do check out some of the other content on the channel. Also, if you're not a member already, please do consider joining the channel, showing solidarity and support in that way. You'll get some exclusive perks starting from just 99p. Thanks again to Mithril for those 5 gifted chats. Great to see you all tonight. Thanks a lot for your comments. Yes, you've all been very agreeable, you wonderful people. Hope you've had a fantastic May Day, Labour Day, and yeah, may the workers of the world unite, as they say. So, hopefully I'll see you again next time. Until then, well, hope you have a very good week as well. Keep an eye out for a potential live stream tomorrow night as well, as I said, with the results of the local elections coming in. Could be some interesting results. Just have to wait and see. But we'll always try and keep you up to speed and abreast of the situation here on My Left Eye. I've been your host, Lefty. You've been wonderful. And until next time, My Left Eye will be seeing you soon. Good night, everyone.